character. Okay. Hello to all you wonderful people out there who are trying to make the world a better place. Welcome to the Dead Man Walking podcast. I am your host, Repeatedly Dead Fred, author of the soon to be released memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is why I'm called Repeatedly Dead Fred, because that's what happened to me. Today, I am fortunate to have Jeff Dennis with me. And Jeff has a fascinating story because he hits all my marks. He's an author, he's a business person, he's helping people reinvent themselves through the pandemic, and he gives good advice for the most part. So, Jeff, thanks for being on the show. Glad to have
It's
you.
my pleasure. It's great to be here.
So, Jeff, one of the things that fascinated me about you is your book is one of those things that's old that's become new again. Even though you said it's a little on the older side, it's full of value and guidance for people in the current situation who are reinventing themselves after the pandemic, because there's never been a better time or an easier time to become an entrepreneur. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with that?
Sure. Yeah, the thing about the book is that these are kind of very typical problems. So the book is called Lessons from the Edge, and it's a collection of stories by entrepreneurs of their biggest screw ups in business and the lessons that they learn.
Mm-hmm.
And what we realized in doing the interviews and trying to figure out, like, what are these lessons that keep happening over and over again that need to be highlighted so that people don't make these mistakes again and again, was that mostly these mistakes are being made because people are making decisions with some sort of limitation in terms of resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's limited time, it's limited money, it's limited people. If they don't have the right partners, they just don't. It's like driving in a fog. You can't see where you're going and you're going to hit things.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to do with the book is kind of lift the fog a little bit and let people see what the pitfalls are. And so the reason it's still relevant is that people continue to make the same mistakes for the same
Mm-hmm.
reasons, because nothing's changed. So, there's 5 chapters. There's a chapter on sort of the personal stuff and leadership. And there's a chapter on finance, and a chapter on partners, and a chapter on people, like hiring and finance. And then the last one is the personal, like health, wellness, that sort of stuff. And there's
Mm-hmm.
10 stories by 10 different entrepreneurs that kind of fall into those chapter categories. And each one has a lesson. And like I said, they're pretty universal lessons because people are faced with these challenges and with these limited resources.
So, do you have a particular favorite lesson that you've learned from one of these things? Like somebody was just, an epic failure at picking partners, um, which is, to be honest, not out of the realm of possibility, because when you go to business school, nobody teaches you about how to select a partner. Actually, in business school, you don't really learn a lot about management and leadership at all. So,
Well, you're right. What I found was that people spend less time interviewing their partners than they do key employees,
mhm,
right? Like, because usually a partnership evolves because you've got this exciting new project, and
mhm,
people are passionate about it, and everybody's kind of throwing in the early days where it's creativity and brainstorming and all of that stuff. But then you get into business and you're into the tough slogging, so you're making these decisions based on your vision, maybe their vision, maybe they're not even the same,
yeah, they're
and
not
you're
aligned.
focused on the product and the customer and not on the relationship and the roles and responsibilities and so on. And then eventually you kind of pull your head up and people start feeling like, oh, I'm contributing, she's not. I don't agree with this. They're not very ethical. They don't have a
Mhm,
good work ethic. I mean, whatever the friction is, they never talked about it. When
mhm,
you interview employees, you make them take tests and you have multiple interviews and you read their resumes. You don't do any of that with partners. You're you know
mhm,
you're you're getting married first, and then you're doing the courtship. Um,
yeah.
So it's like a marriage. It's easy to get into, but really messy to get out of. So, the lesson there was just take your time and go through some sort of process to make sure that you share the same values and that you share the same timelines and you share the same ethic and vision for the business. And,
Hmm.
spend some time on that because it's hard to get out of it if you make a mistake.
For
And get a
sure. Yeah.
shareholders agreement because it'll usually have some kind of shotgun clause or something so that if it doesn't work out, you have a way to get out. That's a very common problem as a lawyer that
Mhm.
we see because, again, people get into these businesses, they build this thing, they don't have any paper, and then they get
Mhm.
into a fight, and it's hard to like put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
For sure. Now, I don't have your breadth of business experience, but I have seen a lot of situations where entrepreneurs just don't understand forecasting, and they sort of assume we've opened our business and we're going to grow at X amount per year because we're just going to pick a number out of the sky. And, their cash flows are totally unrealistic and their growth model is totally unrealistic. And their ways of managing inventory or whatever, or their service or onboarding new staff just don't match up because they have a vision and they get so invested in the vision that they don't understand that just because you say something's going to grow at 10% a year doesn't mean it will. Like you have to,
Yeah,
build
yeah,
the
no,
underlying model.
I agree. I think, listen, the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they're salespeople.
Hmm.
They're creative, so they find it hard to keep a regular job
Hmm.
because they're creative and they're problem solvers, and they just have sort of a certain characteristic about them that wants to be on their own and doing their own thing, controlling their own destiny. But it doesn't mean that they have financial acumen. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean that they necessarily have leadership skills. Just because you got an idea about a product and you're passionate about it, or you're a good salesperson, doesn't mean you know how to run a business. And running a
Hmm.
business is a very different exercise. So I completely agree with you. When we look at startups and early stage companies, um, and I look at the financial projections, I try to work with the companies that I'm helping by putting myself in the shoes of an investor. Like, what do they want to know? And it's all going to come down to the assumptions, right?
Hmm.
If these assumptions, 10% growth in your example, are realistic and they can be defended because there's a pipeline or there's some, concrete evidence that these numbers have some substance and some reality. Otherwise, we send them back to the drawing board because a savvy investor is not going to fall for that. And
Yeah.
that's a big pitfall for them, is that they're dreamers and they also have limited resources. I come back to what I said earlier. They haven't hired a CFO and they haven't hired a VP operations or whatever. So they
Hmm.
probably don't even have the experience to know what the cost of overhead is, an administrative cost, or the cost of acquiring a customer in a SaaS business, and all of that sort of stuff. Like, unless you have experience and understand it, like, what are you doing? You're looking it up on Google and guessing.
Yeah. I found when people were lucky enough to get FaceTime with a venture capitalist, they, I would tell them, if your numbers are crap, they're going to know. They might still be interested in your idea because they think it might have some merit, but they're going to send you back to the drawing board to redo everything. And as a creative or a visionary, you're going to hate this process. And they're not there to be your friend. They are there to make a profit, and they want to have their exit strategy planned and know in the what's your typical 3 to 5 years that people want to get out by generally.
It
And
might be a little longer in the earlier stage stuff, could be 8 years, but yeah. I mean,
yeah.
these are long-term investors, but I completely agree with you. I mean, you're 100% right. The thing is that, especially in the early stage, people are investing in people,
Hmm.
right? So if you show up and don't know what the hell you're doing, and your numbers are make no sense, and they're going to see that you're not the leader that can take this thing over the goal line. So
Hmm.
again, that people invest in people. So you got
Hmm.
to know your numbers, they got to make sense, you got to have a clear vision. And if you don't, then you got to find people to help you build that team that can answer all those questions.
Hmm. And occasionally the investor can point you to somebody that might be a better partner for you, um, that can help you with the areas that you see you're weak in because they think the idea is actually sound, even though you haven't been able to package it properly.
Yeah, I agree with that. Listen, investors, it's always a good idea to get on their radar screen. So sometimes I advise people go see the potential investor
Hmm.
before you're ready. Tell them, you're not ready, but you'd like to
Yeah.
be on their radar screen and you'd like to get some feedback so that what it would take for me to be ready. And
Hmm.
then, they're not, people are funny. If you're in with your hand out looking for money, they'll lean away.
Hmm.
But if you're asking for help, they'll lean forward. And if you can get somebody to lean forward and take an interest in you and follow you for a year or 18 months as you get your ducks in a row, then when you come back and it's the right time, it's first of all, it's a warm meeting, warm
Hmm.
introduction. And secondly, they've been following your progress. You'll say, look, I said I'd do this, this, and this. Well, we not only did this, this, and this, but we did this too.
Hmm.
Now they can see that you can execute, that you're not a stranger to them. They've watched you for a year or so, and they may be more willing to write a check. And you're right, they could point you in the direction of you need this kind of help, and maybe you want to talk to these people, or here's a potential partner for you, or whatever. So I think it's a great idea to get out in front of this, but be open, because if you go in and talk to a senior financial person and you're not ready and you present like you think you're ready, that's
Hmm.
worse than going at all. So better you
Yeah.
should go in and be humble and modest and ask for help and advice, and then the relationship changes from Dr. No to a mentor.
Hmm. Yeah, it'll be like the worst first date of your life. It really will be if you don't go in properly prepared. So you've
Right.
been on this from, both the advisor side and the investor side and the actual business owner side, because you've
Yeah.
had a number of startups and you have a very interesting one coming up right now, that's involved in the health field. So do you want to tell the audience a little bit about that, Fincher?
Yeah. So I guess it kind of brings together two issues that are interesting to me. First, our son, for the last
Mhm.
10 years, has struggled with Lyme disease. And if anybody
Oh,
knows
wow.
anything about chronic Lyme disease, it can be pretty
Mhm.
debilitating. And he's had a hard time, and it's been challenging to find answers and solutions
Yeah.
and so forth. He's doing better now. He just got married a couple of weeks ago, so
Oh,
he's
muzzle
doing
tough.
much better. Thank you, and we're pretty excited about that. But for a long time, it didn't look as if that might ever happen. So
Hmm.
it's a real blessing. Um, but one of the things we learned through this experience is there's like, where do you go for help? Where do you go to find
Hmm.
answers? And for people with Lyme and other chronic illnesses, the traditional medical system, these people fall between the cracks. And I don't want to get into the why because we could be here all day on that. But suffice to
Yeah.
say, there's lots of people out there with different issues that are searching for answers. And they go to Facebook, and the algorithm does its magic and they don't necessarily find what they're looking for. And
Hmm.
so we decided to so we take that. And then I saw this software called ShopType. And ShopType is quite revolutionary because it changes the e-commerce business, going from sort of the last click affiliate type of program where the last click gets 3 or 5% from Amazon,
Hmm.
to multi-touch attribution where they can split commissions amongst multiple people and create a decentralized sales force. So I took those two ideas because struggling with the health issue and then living in the tech world, my head exploded and I just said there's a huge opportunity. So what we've
Hmm.
done is we took the ShopType software and it powers the company, which is called althealth.me. And it's essentially a social media platform and marketplace for people who struggle with health issues. And so if you look at it and go there in the first place, it's kind of like a mini Facebook where people can find articles and content about various health issues. We have things called channels, which are like Facebook groups, but they're topics. There's a diabetes channel and a Lyme disease channel and a yoga channel and a work from home health and a runner's health and all sorts of, we're trying to build 30 different channels. And then we've layered on a marketplace of products and services relevant to our audience, and the vendors are offering substantial commissions to the community. So, average commissions about 30%. Wow. versus 3% on Amazon, 5%. So we're offering sort of 10 times the commissions, and because of the multi-touch attribution, we can split it amongst multiple people. So the odds of getting paid are substantially increased. And so it provides a whole new revenue model for people who are already content creators in these various verticals. If you're writing about diet and so on for diabetics, and you're building a following, and you've got 20,000 people reading your blog, well, we can give you an e-commerce store for free to sell products and earn commissions off our platform. And so today we have 11 channel champions. That's what we call the sort of community leader of each of our channels. And I'm recruiting another 19. My goal is to get to 30 channel champions. And we hit some pretty big numbers in terms of traffic last month, which, for a startup, we've been in business since January. We're up like 1,000% month over month growth in terms of traffic. And we're just starting to be in revenue because our marketplace only opened about a month ago. So we're just getting started. And so it's one of these businesses where you have an opportunity to do good, help people, but do well financially because of the business model that it provides really the bulk of the commissions to the community. It's Amazon on its head. Amazon takes the 30 and gives you 3. We take 5, give you 30. So it creates an incentive for everybody in the community to participate because they can earn these substantial commissions.
So to sort of wrap my head around this, this is less for service providers like naturopaths, or
no, could be, they can. So, for
maybe I'll
example,
phrase this a different way. Is there anybody who can't be on it?
No. I mean, I'm staying away from regulated products. Okay, so I'm not selling prescription drugs because it's just, so you can buy supplements from us. You could buy a yoga class from us. You could buy a book on meditation from us. You could outfit your whole home gym from us because we got everything from weights to, right? So it's really depends on the channel. Like people in Lyme disease are focused on various alternative health solutions. We have a work from home channel. We're building out relationships with vendors who have ergonomic furniture, mental health and burnout types of solutions. Fitness, so we have fitness and lifestyle. So it just depends on the channel. And our channel champions help us merchandise, like they suggest what products they think people in their community. And there are people who know about that, like our diabetes channel champion, Lizzie Miller. She's lived with diabetes and she's done the deep dive. And so this is a way for her to give back, but also, do well as being the leader of this channel.
Very cool. What other types of champions, or how do you find your champions, or do they find you?
I've been advertising on Indeed and LinkedIn, and we interview people. We do sort of quick interviews to make sure there's a fit, And then if there is, then we do a deeper dive. And, we're sort of seeing 3 and 4 people a day that, as potential
Hmm.
candidates. And it's a needle in a haystack because people have to both, want to do good, but
Hmm.
also do well. So, some people are just charitable and philanthropic and aren't really interested in the economic aspect.
Hmm.
And some people are very driven by the economics and not necessarily into the do-gooder thing.
Hmm.
So I'm looking for the right people who have that balance that, and are entrepreneurial, because it's an eat what you kill environment. Like, we have a team right now of
Yeah.
15 people and we're not paying anybody. Everybody's building their own community. It's a community building exercise. So
Hmm.
it's really a grassroots kind of thing. And somebody who wants to make a difference, like we had a woman, Kate Wozniak from, I think she's from Detroit. She was a college runner,
Hmm.
competitive middle distance runner. And so she responded to our Indeed ad. And when talking to her, she said, "Hey, what about a runner's health channel? We could,
Hmm.
focus on, rehab and training and products and fitness and coaches." And great idea.
Hmm.
So she's got her channel. And so people are coming to us with ideas. We have a veterans channel for military vets. That was an
Oh, that's
idea from one of
super
our,
cool.
right? So, I mean, we threw up some channel ideas because, there were some, like Lyme disease was the first one,
Of
selfishly.
course.
But, there were some obvious ones. But I didn't think of the vets and until
Hmm.
Josh came along and suggested it. And it's better that way because it's like I said, it's a community building thing. So he's building something that's meaningful to him because he's a vet.
Hmm. Yeah, I interviewed a former bomb tech the other week, and vets really, really do need a lot of help. So good on you for putting that channel up. So are you
Thank you.
looking for also investors as well?
Um,
Maybe, sort of.
eventually, we're trying to do this grassroots,
Hmm.
and we're trying to, I've I've invested myself and self-funded this.
Hmm.
It's been pretty much a bootstrap exercise, but
Yeah.
like if you take a look, we've come a long way. So, because I guess a lot of people have bought into the vision and are contributing. So I don't know. I haven't. We're not looking for money right now. I mean, if the right partner came along and had
Hmm.
something to contribute and saw our vision, I would be open to it. But it probably would help us grow somewhat faster. But what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for channel champions. I'm looking for people who will roll up their sleeves and take on one of our channels and build them. And our goal is to have 30 channels, each channel do $5 million in revenue.
Hmm.
And the channel champion, because of the way these commissions and referral fees work, they're going to make 5 to 10% of whatever that channel does.
Hmm.
So that becomes a $250,000 to $500,000 a year business at maturity for the channel champion. And it's a recurring thing because once you've built the community, people are going to buy and sell and share, and you're really just kind of the ringmaster.
Yep.
Um,
That's
but
not
you
a
got to
bad
do that.
side hustle.
Well, that's right. And most of the people, it is a side hustle because they need a paycheck because we're all commission based.
Hmm.
But it could be a pretty significant side hustle, and it's a ground floor opportunity in the sense that these channels are going to get built on top of the champion. So
Hmm.
that's anyhow. So that's what we're looking for. And the other thing, I guess, is people who like vendors, and the channel champions are helping us identify what products we should be selling because
Hmm.
thankfully I don't know anything about diabetes and what people are buying, but
Hmm.
Lizzie does, and so they bring that level of expertise. um, and we're just looking for people to come, I guess, come buy something from us and come check it out and come read the content, join. It's free to join, it's free to use, it's free to
Hmm.
post. It's like I said, it's like a Facebook, but it's
Okay.
it's ours. It's not, Zuckerberg or
Hmm.
Musk. It's our community.
Hmm. Well, I love this idea. And as somebody who's gone through, the medical system over the last 12, 14 years, whatever it's been, and seen all the cracks and seen all the people who can't think out of the box, I think this is a brilliant and much needed idea. So, as we're going to wrap up here, I'm going to ask you to pick a number soon. But more importantly, how do people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about being a champion or being a service provider or anything with your new channel?
It's Jeff, Jeff, at althealth.me.
Okay, perfect.
Or they can go to the site and go info@althealth.me. It'll find me. But
Okay,
it's Jeff. I'm Jeff. So I have
that's
to pick a
Jeff.
number. Just
Yeah,
Jeff at althealth.
between 1 and 36, and this will just end us off on a little more
18.
18. Oh, do you aspire to be so successful that you can actually have a frenemy? Do you know what a frenemy is?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess what I would say about that is
Mhm,
in life, relationships ebb and flow, and I've certainly
mhm,
developed some frenemies or friends who became enemies. I had a business
mhm.
partner that we were like blood brothers for 20 years, and
Yeah.
something happened and it didn't end well. So I don't aspire to it.
Mhm,
I'm not the kind of person who's looking to like be a megalomaniac. I'm trying to do good and do well.
mhm, mhm,
So, I think if you do the math on alt health, like it'll be a very profitable business for us.
mhm,
But we can still give 80% of the money to the community.
mhm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, frenemies
I'm
are
at the
tough.
point where I like to do things at this stage in life that I'm passionate and interested in.
Mhm,
So I kind of gravitate to these kinds of things, and that's, I don't know, that's what makes me happy.
mhm. And that's a very important thing that we should have talked about at the beginning is if you're going to take on a passion project, it really you have to know your why and that it's going to keep you happy. Because if it becomes so onerous that it's just crushing you, it's going to be so hard to go to work every day.
I agree, and coming back to what you said at the very beginning of the interview, I think recessions and pandemics are great times to start businesses.
Mhm,
First of all, the measure's low. Everything you're
mhm.
growing is from zero. And then you're going to ride the next wave. It's just timing can be very good. And also, there's a lot of opportunity. You can pick over the bones. You can buy things inexpensively out of receivership or bankruptcy. There's a lot of ways to take
Yeah.
advantage of bad times if you have cash in your
Mhm.
saddlebags.
Yeah. I agree that with that 100%. So, unfortunately, we're just about out of time. So, I'm going to thank you, Jeff. This has been fascinating. I hope that lots of people contact you and see if being a partner or a champion with you is a viable option for them. And I'm just going to say goodbye to the audience. So, thank you all for tuning in. And this is the Dead Man Walking podcast with Repeatedly Dead Fred. And I hope to see you for the next episode. Have a great day. Bye bye.